Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This will be part 2 of our black powder series. What we're going to be doing is cleaning a muzzleloader used this weekend on the Kentucky's early season. The example we're going to use right now is the Night Inline. We're going to be taking it apart and doing what I call a early clean. We're just going to clean it and get it good enough for the second Kentucky muzzleloader season in December. And not necessarily for long-term storage. So we'll start by dismantling this thing by removing the breech plug, which these are fairly simple. You just unscrew the breech plug, mash the trigger, and remove. Some of the products we'll be using today will be the gun scrubber, and we use that on the breech plug and other powder fouled items. The COP brake free, which I run through here after I've cleaned the barrel for some short-term storage. And this we use the Rusty Duck Black Off if the gun's really dirty, and especially if we've used a Sabo or Sabot, however you want to pronounce it, round that's encased in plastic. Or if we've used like a power belt with a plastic belt on it. Sometimes I do use that for most operations. The Hops No. 9 synthetic does a fair enough job with that. Okay, we're going to be using the nipple removal tool. These use a small percussion cap. Again, pushing the trigger in to get the tool through there to it. Removal. Okay. This is where the percussion cap goes on. It's referred to as the nipple. And what I do, instead of, if you watch some of these, the CVAs or the TC videos, they'll list 1,000 products out there if they sell. You really don't need those. You could put a lot of money in cleaning, which is unnecessary. I will use a little bit of the Hops No. 9 in a container. Unlike what they do and immerse it in it, I will take just a craft paintbrush and just coat the parts that I'm going to be cleaning. And that's usually just in front of the striker. And let that sit while I'm working on the rest of the gun. I also take the nipple portion and soak it really good with that as well, and also let that sit while we're working on it. To clean the barrel, I usually start out with this ramrod that comes with it. Is adequate, but it is very helpful to purchase an extension with the jag on the end, because it gives you a little bit more of the ramrod to hold on to. And it just makes the job a lot easier. So I usually start out with soaking a patch in the Hops No. 9. And it really helps when you're clumsy. When you're clumsy, it just makes this job so much easier. That's the story of my life. Start and soak the barrel a little bit with the old Hops No. 9. You can see that it come out very dirty. You flip it over. Give it one more brush up in there. Bring it out. And I keep like a sandwich bag over here to put my patches on. That way it don't stain my table or anything. Then I usually follow up with a 50 cal brush that I go ahead and use my cleaning rod for. And now this is brand new, unused, so I go ahead and put that down in the solvent. If I've already used it, which you'll see in a minute, I will go ahead and use the brush to put a little bit on my wire brush. And I'll bring that in there 3 or 4 times. And this gun had only been fired 1 time, since it had been cleaned the previous time. We'll go ahead and run a dry patch through there. And we'll see where we're at with the cleaning process. Oh yeah, very dirty. What's the old saying, rinse and repeat. We will go ahead and start over with a wire brush to give it one more good scrubbing. At this point, I will be using the small paintbrush with the Hops number 9, regular synthetic. You get it in your Walmart. And we'll give it another 2 or 3 rakes there. Back in with a dry patch, clean it out. And at this point I am going to soak another patch in a Hops number 9. And give it a run through there, because I'm pretty sure the brush has probably loosened any gunk that is caked in there. We just need to kind of remove it. Now I do know this gun had fired a sabot or a sabot round, so just as a precautionary, usually not too bad, but you will tell when you're loading around down in there, it gets a little bit hard to push. This plastic does strip off and sometimes foul the barrel. So with this being the most expensive product we're using, I use that sparingly. But we will use that to make sure that we have indeed cleaned the plastic fouling out of it. And I just put a small amount in the cap. I'll soak that patch with it. And we'll go ahead and run that through there a time or 2. That's a pretty stout solvent, so it usually don't take a whole lot. Flip it through her a few more times, and most times this step is unnecessary, but it's good to make sure you've got it ready for the next time, because if you go out there and put the time in and the effort and freeze, it's good to know that your gun is in top shape when you need it. Go ahead and run a dry patch through there, and let's see how that comes out now. Red. Which was the color the rest you got. Very little black, if any. So that tells me we're pretty good. Pretty good. Now for the short-term storage, I use COP. It's a good protectant, clean, lubricate, protect. Helps inhibit the rust in here until the mid-December, late muzzleloader. If I was going to store this long-term, I would go ahead and use the I think Casey's Birchwood makes what's called a boar butter. It's a long-term coating for your barrel, and we will be doing that in another video. At this point, we're just trying to get it by for a month or 2 until second muzzleloader. Go ahead and soak a patch. These are pre-cut patches mainly because I'm lazy, but you can use a t-shirt or anything and cut you some squares out of it. Works just fine, same material. We'll run that through there a time or two to coat the barrel. Black powder is extremely corrosive, and you really need to coat that barrel pretty good if you're going to store it for a little bit. If you're going to store it a long time, you better coat it real good. Okay, I think that has got the barrel cleaned. Little piece of useless information. Back in the Civil War days and the colonial days, if they were out in the field and they didn't have, normally they just cleaned it with soap and water. But if you're out of soap and water, don't fret, you're in luck. Because a lot of times they actually urinated on patches and used those as cleaner. It worked very well because it has a natural ammonia in it. But that is last resort if we have to. Let's see, let's go to the nipple area here. When it comes to the cap nipple, I brushed it down with some hops number 9. I use a guitar string. You can buy these $50, $60, $800 tools that has basically a guitar string in the end of it. Garbage. String guitar, use that. Works like a charm. Just keep it laying in your cleaning equipment. And it fits pretty much any black powder nipple that I've got to clean. Some of them use a little bit larger flash hole in the end. You can actually use a wound E-string for those, and it does a great job of cleaning. But this one has a little bit smaller flash hole. Let's see. I got a little bronze brush I like to take and kind of clean the end of it with. I'll go ahead with the outside of it there. And at this point, I will go ahead and coat it one more time. The hops number 9. It not only cleans, it is also a rust inhibitor in itself. Now, in my previous video, when I talked about dry shooting a cap on these, the reason you do that is you actually, when you clean these, you immerse them in solvent, or you at least soak them. And sometimes that's still in there when it's time to load. And that will actually deaden the primer or will prevent the ignition of the charge. But you really don't want to put them up too dry because they will rust. So I just use a regular rag soaked with CLP break free. And I will go ahead and coat my nipple with that. Going to set it to the side while we're working on the striker. We had previously soaked the striker with hops number 9. And as you can tell, it's still wet. I'll take my bronze brush and go ahead and clean that good. Trick of the trade, if you're really tightwad like I am, you can take an actual pistol brush one that's seen better days. You take that pistol brush, it's brass wire, won't mar the metal. You take and do the same thing with it. Use that money to buy you a pop. No need to waste money when you don't have to. Unless you're trying to endorse a product like a lot of these guys are. Okay. We'll go ahead and brush some more hops number 9 back on there. clear some of that gunk out of there and let us look at it and see what we're working with. Okay. Another tip for cleaning guns, and this is only to be used after you have really cleaned the part, is you tell that thing is many years old and been used a lot. You use one solitary rag for your oil. It retains the oil. You don't always have to reload it. And you just do a final wipe down of your product. That's what CLP. Really good to store your guns with because it cleans, lubricates, and protects. And since I clean my gun, I use it to protect. So at this point, I like to also clean down in here. And where the actual nipple goes, I will take a small screwdriver and reach back in there with my oily rag. Kind of clean that out a little bit. That really doesn't get too bad dirty. If it does, that's where this comes into play. You can hold the gun up, spray it downhill with that. Cleans that out really good. Only problem is it does clean out all your oil and anything in your trigger mechanism, so you really need to relubricate that really good if you do that. This gun is not very dirty at all. So we will go ahead and clean the threads out in the back of this really good. I have to clean the threads out on this, and something I really like to do when you're talking about threads, especially on a black powder rifle that's very corrosive, I like to use anti-seize on them. Small amount. And you'll find you'll get all over you. But smallest amount, as you rotate the bolt, it will fill the threads. And that will prevent a lot of heartache later on, especially if you get delayed, you're not able to hunt the next year, or something that delays your hunt and you're not able to take it apart for year after year. You can use anything you got. I take an old brush with a wooden handle, and I'll take and bring that back in there and kind of clean our threads. Bring it back in the tube and make sure it's good and clean. Got a little oil on it. This rag is soaked in CLP. Okay, we will go ahead and replace the nipple, which has been cleaned and coated in CLP. Got to pull the trigger, which everything's clear, it's unloaded. Get that forward. Make sure you don't cross thread it. It's lined up. We will tighten it back up. Do not want to leave it loose, as well as not over tight. Once these freeze up in there, after a time or two using it, gun's useless. So need to make sure this step, snug it at best. Go ahead and trigger, remove it. At this point, we have wiped this down with the CLP and treated the gun, the bolt. Time to replace that, pushing the trigger in and seating the threads with the thumb bolt. Okay, at this point the gun has been reassembled. When it's time to put it back in the gun rack or the gun safe, I just simply take the rag that's been coated in CLP and cover all of the metal parts with that. Give me the good coat again. Black powder or Pyrodex is extremely corrosive. Also, throughout the year, on a rainy day or a snow day in the winter that you get bored, do yourself a favor and come down and maybe recoat your barrel again with the CLP, or if you've got the Casey's Birchwood Boar Butter, go ahead and run you another patch down in there with that just to make sure it's stored and it will not rust between now and next season. But as far as cleaning the inline muzzleloader, the night specifically on this one, that's all there is to it, guys. Not a lot of money into it, a little bit of time. I think the video probably took a grand total of 10-15 minutes. Small amount of time to put in for the peace of mind of having your gun ready to go next time. So for now, thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe. See you back next time. Thank you.